All right, well, it is 9 a.m. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Graham Dodge, organizer here at 1 Million Cups and the executive director of the Mid-Atlantic Gigabit Innovation Collaboratory. Really, without further, well, I guess I should do some of the housekeeping stuff. If you are a first-time attendee, please know that if you attend 5 of these in a row, you get one of the, oops, my camera's not doing, my virtual background is hiding it, but here it is. It's a 1 Million Cups travel mug. If you attend 5 of these in a row, you get one of these for free. And if you present at 1 Million Cups, you get one of these nice ceramic mugs for free. And if you attend 10 of these in a row, you get a 1 Million Cups t-shirt, which Val is modeling right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over to Val, who's actually going to run the program today and introduce you to the core concepts of 1 Million Cups. Take it away, Val.
Good morning. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you see the right thing? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. So
Yep,
welcome.
it's there.
Is there anybody, this is their first 1MC? Jeremy, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about 1MC. Our mission is to lower the barrier for access to education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. And I think we're doing a mighty fine job of that. We have some core pillars that are really important to our mission that I want to share with you. These are presentations, not pitches. It's connection, not networking. We are for the community, by the community. No one owns 1MC, and nobody should be paid to do 1MC. And we are radically and intentionally inclusive. We meet every week, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. We aim to have 2 presenters, and we're doing a pretty good job of that. An organization presenting must be less than 5 years old and willing to ask for help. And with every presentation, we end with the question, what can we do as a community to help you? This is our organizing team. We've been on this journey for a while, and we are so excited that everyone has returned, and Jeremy, that you have joined us today. So.
And I think I see a new face, Dan Hoff, I believe, and I don't think Jen Nallo has been on the call before, so I think they're both new. Hi, Dan. Hi, Jen.
And it was put in chat that it's actually Chris on Jen's account.
Oh, it is Chris. Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is Chris's first. Is this Chris's first?
I think so.
The Cups. Anyway.
All right. Well, I do want to also plug that 1 Million Cups is sponsored by Magic, which Graham is our representative of, and we'll be hearing from in a little bit, and also Furnace Hills Coffee. And for the newbies, Julius, will you do me a heavy there and throw that code in the chat so that everyone can have their 25% off coupon for Furnace Hills Coffee and getting those magic beans. All right.
This is a thing I join every week.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if everyone except for Mr. Graham Dodge will make sure that they are on mute, we are going to get started. Graham is here as a representative of Magic, and he, for our first presentation, is going to share with us the Autonomous Corridor Project. So Graham, take it away.
Thank you very much, Val. And let's see here. Sorry, let me get my screen set up.
While he's doing that, remember, if you've got questions, please jump them in the chat. Drop them in the chat. Thank you.
Or jump them in the chat, whichever. All right. So hi, everybody. I think everybody here I have met. So thank you for joining today to learn more about this very special project that we've been working on here at Magic. It's called the Autonomous Corridor Project. And as the name suggests, it involves autonomous vehicles and other autonomous technologies. So to kind of just take a step back as to why we're doing this in the first place. So Magic, has this sort of strategic position in the community here in Westminster, as this hub of technology, innovation, and activity as it relates to entrepreneurship. Our programs attract students and workforce. Our programs attract industry volunteers and mentors, investors and funding. And then we output economic development, we output workforce development, so on and so forth. Part of our vision for the city of Westminster is this idea that we have all the same ingredients that Silicon Valley had back in the 1950s and 60s, when Silicon Valley was just a several small train station towns between San Jose and San Francisco. You had Mountain View, you had Palo Alto, Cupertino, and these were like, small sleepy towns that no one had heard of. And the reason why they became the technology economic powerhouse that they are today is because of this confluence of defense contractors moving in and offering jobs to people working there. And then, you had Stanford, who then responded by helping develop the workforce for those silicon chip manufacturers. So we have a lot of those same ingredients here in Westminster. And so our role here at Magic is really to just be that glue that keeps all these different stakeholders working together to kind of keep this mutual goal moving forward. So as we work in sort of this technology-driven economic development plan, one of the opportunities that has come up as a result of this region and of the needs that the community has with different transportation gaps is this idea of having an autonomous corridor that would operate autonomous shuttles, among other things. Part of the heritage that we have here that's unique to Westminster is we were the home of General Dynamics Robotics. And as I have, stepped into this role at Magic over the last year and a half and gotten to meet some of the alumni, so to speak, of that organization who are still here in town working and developing autonomous technologies, I realized that, we have an opportunity for the cobbler's children to wear some shoes and us to benefit as a community from the brain trust that we have here in Westminster. So what is the autonomous corridor? The autonomous corridor is an 11-mile route starting, this is what we're proposing, starting at Carroll Lutheran Village, extending over to McDaniel. We may have a spur that goes actually back to Safeway and Boggers, because we can't actually get from Carroll Lutheran Village to Boggers that way. We have to, I've driven the route now and learned that it actually needs like a little spur that goes back, just because of the autonomous vehicles. Most of the autonomous vehicles we're looking at can't go on roads that are over 35 miles per hour. And there's a couple of sections there where you have to either get on 140 or 31. So anyway, but this is generally the proposed route. And then we would scan that initially along with all the different side streets so that you could operate autonomous vehicles. But this would also create what we call a virtual twin city of the city of Westminster that would allow us to do simulations and assessments for all sorts of different smart city technologies, not just autonomous vehicles. So the plan right now is that we have this sort of three-phased approach. Phase one is actually going to be kicked off on May 20th from the Stocksdale garage parking lot with the launch of the vehicle as rendered here that will actually scan the route and help us create that 3D asset that's going to be created by Dynamic Dimension Technologies. They are one of the companies, and if you've been on these calls before, you've seen Carl present Dynamic Dimension Technologies here at 1 Million Cups. So they are our main partner in this project who has the technology. It's like $1 million man. We have the technology. And so DDT has that technology, and they are graciously letting Magic use it and working with us to develop this project. So the phase one is really the scanning and then also the planning, where we're going to start coordinating with different partners. And we've already identified several, including McDaniel, Carroll Community College, Carroll County Public Libraries, Carroll County Public Schools, all of whom are dedicated to developing the research questions, not to mention the city of Westminster, of course, the research questions around what can these autonomous technologies do for the city? How can they help us overcome these transportation gaps? People, I saw the other day, I was driving down 140 at Engler, and I saw someone walking across 140 holding a flat screen TV that they just bought at, Walmart or whatever. There are people in town that don't have vehicles, and it's not easy for them to get around. So what are those gaps that we can overcome? So that's all part of the planning phase of phase one. That during that phase, we'll also be applying for different grants based on these research questions. Phase two would actually be acquiring one vehicle, deploying it in this autonomous corridor for testing purposes, and see what problems we run into. What other opportunities do we uncover, and how much more interest do we find comes as a result of this testing, the actual vehicle. We may find out that there are other companies in town that want their own autonomous vehicles, knowing that this infrastructure now exists that they could have access to. And then phase three would be to expand the whole program, where we would have a fleet of vehicles either owned by the city or in a combination of, McDaniel might own one or two, the community college might own one or two, the city might own a few, and then you would see several of these operating on the city streets in Westminster. Here's a quick image of a preliminary scan that Carl from DDT shared with us. This is actually back behind, I believe, the Longwell building, and around the parking garage area there at Longwell, if I'm not mistaken. You can kind of see in the black and white the image of the 360 or 180 degree view of where they were at the time of this. So we're already starting to do some preliminary scans that DDT is starting right now. It's very exciting. These are what some of the vehicles look like. We are looking at a couple different options. Some would be these sort of prefab options, like Local Motors has one called the Ollie. Perrone Robotics has one called the Tony. They all have very cute names for some reason. And then the second option would be maybe to convert something like a Trailblazer, using a drive-by-wire kit, they call it. So there are different options, and we could have several different types in the corridor. We could have an Ollie just serving Main Street. We could have a converted Trailblazer or something like it serving a larger area that maybe deals with different topography and something that a gas-powered vehicle that can go over 35 miles per hour would be more suitable for. We're not limited to just one vehicle choice. These are the current partners, as I mentioned, who are a part of this planning process for phase one right now and the scanning process. These are other regional autonomous vehicle stakeholders that we've identified here in Maryland and Virginia, who are interested in participating not only in our ribbon cutting ceremony, which is also going to have like an autonomous vehicle showcase event associated with it. Ting, I saw Val raise her hand. Ting is another stakeholder in all this too. I need to put their logo in there. Sorry about that, Val. Look at Val's screen to see Ting's logo. And this is the engagement team. Of course, myself, I'm doing a lot of like the grant writing, along with Gabby here at Magic. And then we have DDT's team, Carl, Olga, Saman, who are leading the effort in terms of what we'll do with that 3D asset once we have it, that scanned asset of the city, to run those simulations. And the technology that they have, the specific name for it is called VX-Sim. And this is the simulation software that they actually have deployed for the US Navy. So, the city of Westminster will be benefiting from technology that's been developed not only by DDT for the US Navy, but it really is the inheritance of years of development from General Dynamics Robotics moving into, what Carl has started at DDT. And what they're doing this for the Navy is autonomous amphibious vehicles. So the physics engine required for understanding the vehicle going from surf to land, you can imagine that if it can do that, it can certainly handle the wintry roads here in Westminster. So we're very excited about the technology behind this and the ability for us to be a bellwether community that sets the sort of the regulatory expertise of what a city should do to deploy these technologies on public roads. Because while there are several communities out there, especially in like flat, sunny states like California and Florida, where you may see some of these autonomous vehicles in operation, there aren't many that are actually operating in the Mid-Atlantic, let alone the you know, a region that's as hilly as Westminster. So there's a lot of those types of topographic challenges that we will overcome with this. But anyway, all right, I think I've probably gone over time. We'll, I guess, go to Q&A.
I have proven to be a terrible mentor or monitor or MC because I wasn't even keeping track of time. And I was waving to my kid earlier. He's doing show and tell, and he wanted to show me what he was going to tell. So, but I do have trumpet happening upstairs, band practice. So we've got this whole band thing started. We're doing good. Questions in the chat were most about the new 1MC band, which we'll maybe have to talk about later. Daniel Hoff from the Hoff Agency says, this is a very cool project and something I think will benefit Westminster in the long run, which I think we all agree with. That's a band comment. Jenna says, absolutely love this idea. It's so needed to make transportation in the area more possible for those who can't or don't drive or have a vehicle. And Jenna had some firsthand experience with that for a little bit of time. So I am sure she would have loved to have had an autonomous vehicle to hop on to get to work, right? Okay, so Tamar, we have a question here. What is the total cost envisioned?
Total cost envisioned for this would be about a little over $1 million. It's about $1.1 million for all three phases. That includes acquiring a fleet and having a lease on up to 3 vehicles. That would be, you know, the city's vehicles for a year for the phase 3, you know, for that final year. So those operating costs go down, obviously, after the infrastructure is put in place. That also doesn't take into account some of the stuff that Val and I still need to talk about, which is, you know, what are the advantages we can put in place for having, you know, dedicated Wi-Fi hotspots for the autonomous vehicles throughout the corridor, and what's that going to cost to have, you know, the city of Westminster run those fiber drops and for Ting to manage access to those Wi-Fi hotspots on behalf of not only the city of Westminster, but any other companies that may want to deploy autonomous technology. So it's a bit of a moving target right now, but right now, based on known costs, we're looking at a little over $1 million for the next 2 years or so. The initial phase 1 is only about $50,000 worth of work, and that's mostly because DDT is basically providing most of their effort as an in-kind donation to Magic in the city to do this. So, you know, we really are grateful to Carl and DDT for helping us with this. And then, you know, the other big cost for phase 1 is going to be this big ribbon cutting event that's turning into a whole autonomous vehicle showcase. It's attracting actually companies from Virginia and maybe even around the region. We were just talking to Johns Hopkins Institute of Assured Autonomy, and they're taking an interest in this project as well, and they might have representatives there. We do know for a fact we're going to have Secretary Kelly Schultz at the event. We're going to have Secretary Greg Slater, who's our Maryland State Department of Transportation Secretary. We've invited Governor Hogan. We've invited U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, and we have actually we've had some RSVPs from the Chamber of Commerce has sent out some invites to other politicians on our behalf. I know that new state delegate Reed Novotny, who represents, I think it's an area between Carroll and Howard County that overlaps both. He's RSVP'd. He's going to be there. So that's exciting.
All right.
Yeah.
From Josh Ambrose, we have, Graham, what are the biggest challenges to a long-term implementation of this project in terms of the technology?
The long-term challenges. Well, Carl, you probably figured at some point I'm going to call on you. Do you want to answer that question since you're our technology partner?
Only if I can find the unmute.
You did it, Carl. We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm kind of technology challenged with Zoom. That's a good question. There are a lot of different challenges, and we kind of foresee this as being something that, well, if you think about how kids learn to drive, and place a computer, compare that to a computer learning to drive. We're in the mode of a computer learning to drive, and kids, they get their license. Computers, we don't know how to get a license for a computer to drive yet. There's a lot of challenges there. But as kids grow and mature and you get your experience driving, you're constantly learning. So we kind of foresee that the computers have that need too. So this long-term challenge is how to work with the learning aspects, and there's a lot of deep learning technologies that are starting to mature and are looking at how those can get rolled into the autonomy software stack as well. So this is, I think the biggest challenge is how do we manage the growth and change of the technologies as it goes. So technology is going to constantly change and evolve, and how do we keep on top of that?
Well, I was talking to Paul Perrone, who's the CEO of Perrone Robotics, and they're going to bring one of their Tony vehicles to the ribbon cutting event. And he was saying, you know, for his vehicle, for example, they can just do a quick drive through an area and that'll scan it. And then the vehicle itself has all the autonomous technology on it to operate correctly and start running and do demonstrations. The advantage of having the whole city scanned with this autonomous corridor 3D simulation is not just to help be that sort of not to just help inform and educate these computer systems and teach them how to drive, so to speak, but also to run the simulations on public, you know, for public safety, public works. You could also set up LiDAR cameras that can essentially look for, you know, obstacles in the road. So if something falls off the back of a truck and gets stuck in the middle of an intersection, the city would know about it right away. Those types of information systems would also benefit, you know, public works would benefit, public safety would benefit from this sort of system as well.
Hey, Graham,
Yeah.
I got a question for you, kind of going down the road. If, let's say you get this up and running 3 or 4 years from now, and you want to keep it, you know, going, what is your vision for how to make it, you know, self-sufficient so it's not running in the red from a continuing basis? Because obviously, whatever you do here, while it's great for PR and really innovative and would be a great project for Westminster, at some point you want it to be self-sufficient. So what is your vision for down the road, how that comes to be? Is it through user fees or you know, I'll let you talk. Just kind of curious about long-term.
Well, John Wheatman actually brings up the question of selling ad space. That actually is part of the revenue model for the vehicles themselves, is that the Ollie, for example, can project ads on the glass of its windows. And so you can actually run real-time ad distribution through the vehicles themselves. But we can also use a local partner to wrap the vehicles with, you know, or put ads on the vehicles. So that's another opportunity right there. But then, yes, I think primarily you're talking about any business that wants to have an autonomous service that runs on the infrastructure would be paying a fee to access the infrastructure. And that point of access would likely be through the gigabit fiber network, through Wi-Fi hotspots, and then having access to the 3D simulated environments to do testing. All of that could be monetized based on some sort of subscription service, like you would to get Ting, you know, service in your home. You would want that network capability and redundancy for connectivity for your autonomous services, whether it's a little delivery drone that's picking up something from Walmart and bringing it to your house, or if it's a shuttle, or if it's even, an unmanned aerial, vehicle that, that's what's coming next. So this infrastructure will help pave that way for all those different types of opportunities.
Somewhat related to that, Graham, Tina asks, Is this tech dependent on crazy fast internet? Is the cloud needed to run, or are they truly autonomous? And I know this is one that's kind of like sort of blowing my mind as well. So if you could sort of talk about how the autonomous vehicles run.
Well, one of the advantages we have, so sometimes the autonomous system, for example, like a Waymo, if you've never heard of a Waymo, it's one of Google's autonomous vehicles. They have no steering wheel, right? So if your Waymo suddenly can't function, you can't do anything to take over the controls. And instead what happens is there's like a remote drone pilot, basically like somewhere in the Nevada desert, who takes over the system for you. But that can't happen if there's a loss of connectivity. So the fact that we have this low latency, high bandwidth network, I think gives us this advantage of being able to say, as a bellwether community, one of the things that we can use and leverage for this system to be as safe and reliable as it could possibly be is by having this low latency network. And that's where I think, it might not be necessary for an autonomous system to run, like Perrone Robotics, Tony. He can deploy that anywhere pretty much. But it's exactly the type of regulatory and policy framework that departments of transportation are looking at to make sure that this should even be allowed to happen in the first place. And if we can prove as a community that this is safe and reliable and provides the redundancies based on our gigabit fiber structure, gigabit fiber internet may become a prerequisite for other communities who want to do this at the scale at which we're doing it. And by the way, our community, this proposal of doing an 11-mile corridor on public roads is unique. No other community has really, except for maybe inside California, where it's always sunny and flat for the most part. Nobody really has the same challenges that we would have here, given the topography, given the size of the corridor that we're proposing. So it really is a pretty big undertaking.
My mind is a little blown. How does an autonomous vehicle avoid a pedestrian who runs out in the road?
It uses computer vision. It understands that that's a person that has just entered the road, and it's accessing the knowledge of a neural network of images of people, basically. But Carl might actually be able to give you a more scientific answer if you want one. We might not have time for a scientific answer.
Basically, the computer doesn't really care. It looks at it and says, oh, that's an object. That's an obstacle that's moving into my path. It doesn't care if it's a person, a dog, someone on a bicycle or with a stroller or what. It just detects that there's some big object coming in, and it's going to want to avoid it or want to stop for it. It'll also know part of the scanning process and learning process on all of the autonomy systems is they get the a priori data. So part of the mapping is going to say, where are the crosswalks, where are the stop signs, where are the street lights and all of that. And that's the information that's collected and put on board the systems, and they run. Where they need the cloud information or need the connectivity is for changes to that baseline. So, the other day, yesterday, I was here and across the street on Main Street here, there's a big crane. They're working on the Verizon building next door or across the street. And that was a whole change in the traffic pattern. These, the systems, once they do their scans, they're not going to know about that. And that's where they need to get that information from a cloud environment or from our virtual environment that we'd be maintaining and be able to update them on the fly.
The other sustainability, oh, sorry, was that?
Nope, I just said awesome. I understand. And thank you also for using terminology that I understood. That was awesome.
I know I've only got a minute left, but I just want to get in real quick too, per Dan's question and John's question. And I think Jenna is also talking about in the chat about revenue models for advertising. The other revenue model would be actually charging a fare for the vehicles. So if the city has their own fleet, and that has yet to be determined who would own the fleet, but if they did, then they could then charge a reasonable fare that would be effectively more, it would be less expensive than what the current CATS and Trailblazer options are for a on-demand service where you actually hail the shuttle to your front door, get on it, and have it run you over to Aldi or whatever. Like, that's the advantage as well in terms of a transportation solution that we don't really have that kind of transportation solution right now. And Uber would be way too cost ineffective to offer something like that.
So Russ asked one last question that I think is a yes or no question. He says, this is probably cliche at this point, but does this mean you have to code for the trolley problem?
I don't know. What's the trolley problem? I guess I don't know what that term means.
It kind of.
Who do you want to run over?
Yes. As an example, if you have one obstacle in the street or you have 5, is it a conscious decision to hit the one?
Okay. Well, thanks for our organizing team of the autonomous corridor to discuss. We have one mandatory last question. And Graham, that is, what can our 1MC community do to help this autonomous corridor project?
Well, one of the things that we just would love to kind of see as a community discussion about hearing from different people who live in the city or work in the city, where they think a solution like this would benefit them. I've heard a lot from students at McDaniel, from other people who have some use cases about, I don't have a car anymore, so I walk everywhere. Things like that would be great to hear. Like, what are the pain points or the gain points that you would see for yourself personally? Like, understanding that, you just email me, I'll put it here, gdodge@magicinc.org, because as I collect sort of responses to that question, then we can develop research questions around them for the planning phase and address some of those concerns and highlight some of the advantages. Other than that, if you happen to represent an organization that's interested in sponsoring the ribbon cutting event, we do have sponsorships available. If you know a company that's interested in displaying, exhibiting, or having their logo on the scanning vehicle that's going to be driving around Westminster, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Graham. Appreciate you sharing this with us this morning. We are going to jump to presentation number 2. And presentation number 2 is from Josh Ambrose, who comes to us today from Hey Westminster. Are you with us, Josh?
I am. Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here, and I should immediately mention that I am joined by other members of the Hey Westminster team. We have Jen, we have Daniel, we have Jeremy on the call, and I have already, but I will continue to give them complete permission to jump in here at any point and add to the discussion. But really excited to be here. As many of you know, I first moved to this community about 10 years ago for McDaniel College, although I am now coming to you today recently from Johns Hopkins. But as I moved here to Westminster and got really involved in the community, both with the nonprofit and small business scene, really was encouraged by just the strong community ties that were here, and also how much I was welcomed to our Main Street life. I quickly realized just the entrepreneurial connections that were here, and the deep sense of community, but also was highly cognizant from day one that we weren't totally there yet, that we had a lot of opportunity to improve our community. And so I began to dream a couple of years ago, really started having some discussions with Graham and some others about what would it look like if we had $1 million+ in the bank to transform our Main Street community to make it all that we wanted it to be. But it's hard to get to $1 million, right? So if that was, and maybe is, my North Star, I wanted to find a way to grow that groundwork, to start building a network of time, treasure, and talent dedicated to making our Main Street downtown community all that we wanted to see. I've always had a highly internalized locus of control, and I believe that change begins with you and me. And so I wanted to get a group of new, relatively young blood working together for the same thing. And a lot of those roots of those discussions were also in some other meetings that Joe Dominic and Val and lots of other folks and I have been having over the past few years. So last year, I had a discussion with my friend Spud up in State College, Pennsylvania, and he told me about this group called the Awesome Foundation. And I realized that this was the framework for us to start taking some of those next steps on a new community-based initiative. So what is the Awesome Foundation? It is not a nonprofit. It is not a chamber of commerce. It is not a foundation. It is not a charity. So there's a lot of things that it's not. But what it is a hyper-local Kickstarter where we want to try to find things to encourage and to stimulate, to serve as a catalyst here in our community. So it's a really small scale pass-through initiative, highly collaborative, highly flexible, highly nimble. And this appealed to me because I didn't want cumbersome paperwork and apparatus. And I wanted us to be able to give money away to anything that we thought was worth highlighting. We already have, as I said, a really strong nonprofit community, a really strong charitable spirit here in town. I didn't want to just add another voice to all that noise. So started reaching out and to some folks, and we got about 10 or so people together. We met for the first time in November, and then we launched in January. You can all check out our website at heywestminster.com. And kind of our trajectory is we debated and considered some folks to fund in January, and funded Katie Kirby, and Together We Own It as our first grant in January. We got our first 2 applications for February, and gave our second grant out to AO Boutique, which is opening up right across from Genie Bird. And then by March, this month, we just met last week, and we were considering over a dozen applications. So we went from self-selecting to having 2 applicants to I think we had 13 or 14 that we were considering in our last round. So we're really excited for the traction that this idea is getting. Well, what is this idea? Let's talk a little bit more about how it works. Each month we pass the hat, and each member of our team, each trustee is the word that we use, gives $100. And so we try to have a minimum of 10 people on the team, all giving $100. Though there's some variance there. Some give a little more, some give a little less. And at the end of our decision, we give away $1,000 to something that we think is awesome here in town. And as part of our decision process, we get around on a Zoom meeting currently. We're hoping to do it in person before too long. And we look at the ideas proposed, and we debate them, and we talk about them. And then through a democratic process of voting, we choose one that we think is awesome, that we want to give that money to. I would want to mention at this point, though, while the Awesome Foundation has been our, one of our models and a spark, we are not officially affiliated with them, as in the Awesome Foundation is a very loose network. So we don't pay dues. There's no official membership. And if we want to just do our own thing at any point, there is nothing preventing us from doing that, which is great because this project is growing. There is a lot of interesting things developing adjacent to it. So Jeremy Willett's brother, Justin, runs global media, and he's been donating his video and photography services as his donation. Jeremy also brought in a local construction company into the fold, and they have agreed to give us a full construction day each month with 2 full-time, I think, construction workers. And so we're going to start having construction days where they kind of lead the charge, and then we have volunteer opportunities for other members of our community or from the Hey Westminster team to come join them and make a difference for a local project. Our team of trustees is offering feedback, mentorship, and networking help for not just our winners, but basically everybody who applies. And so, even people who don't get it, we're still reaching out to them and offering to help them in any way that we can. And I think it's worth mentioning here at this point that anybody who applies remains in our hopper. In other words, if you don't get it for March, you're then immediately in consideration for April as well. So those 12, 13, 14 different projects that were proposed for this month, they're still there, and they're still being considered for next month. And then we're hyping the stories through those videos, through social media, through our website, and we're about to launch a monthly newsletter as well that people can sign up for. And we have other folks circling us looking to give back in kind services, and we're really stoked about it. I'm going to take a moment here and just highlight last month's winner, and if all goes well, you'll hear our audio.
My name is Darrell Page. I am the owner of AO Boutique.
Josh,
here in
you are not
Westminster.
presenting, so we're not seeing anything.
AO is a term we use in Baltimore when we call people. We'll just be like, AO, and everybody
see
will
it.
turn around.
Yeah, we can see it. I can see it.
Okay, sorry.
The first location is in Baltimore in a historic area called Old Town Mall. I decided to choose this area because I asked a lot of people, what don't this area have? You know, and I was told urban clothing. So I wanted to basically bring what everybody said they didn't have here to this area. I'm still doing it now. So I go ask people like, what else don't you have in this area? You know, some people want like, you know, a chicken spot. Some people want like a bowling alley, you know, so I'm trying to bring all that here with my team. What I do is I house local entrepreneurs, whether you make like clothing, custom sneakers, candles, and I put us all under one roof because I know together we invest together. Like right now, next door, we are investing into a gaming lounge for kids in this area. And they said a lot of kids in this area don't have anything to do, so we came together outside of clothing and we invest together. But that's the whole point of AO Boutique. So if you type in, it don't matter what you type in, Twitter, Instagram, type in AO Boutique, I am the one, I am the guy, the only one. Hey, Westminster, let's be awesome.
So a great media product there, donated again by Justin Willett from Global Media. And we're doing this for every winner in every group that we interact with. At least that's our goal as of right now. So we're really boosting the story of cool things happening here in Westminster. And, you know, whether or not, you know, everything happens or not, or whether or not these groups are long-term, you know, successful, whether they become multi-million-dollar businesses or nonprofits, is not really the goal. Again, we're trying to serve as a catalyst to just come alongside, encourage, network, and boost the signal on things that are happening here. So with the time that I had left, you know, happy to take questions, but I think just to wrap up about where we're at, is the question, as just the momentum continues to build here that our team is kind of wrestling with in the best possible way, is how do we scale up? You know, we had that kind of the initial genesis was me thinking about what would it look like to have a lot more money in the bank. Is that still a goal or not? You know, should we even try to do that? And there's a lot of different ways that we can approach that. But again, right now, we're really stoked with where we're at currently and excited to see where it goes next. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the rest of the group. And please, Jeremy, Jen, Daniel, feel free to chime in here.
Thank you, Josh. And guys, I am having a day. I had you minimized the whole time, Josh, so I didn't see any of your presentation, but the hazard of two screens.
I see how it
here.
is.
It's two screens. I don't have it. Okay, so Graham would like to agree that we need a good chicken spot. And he asks, would you consider publicizing the projects that don't get awarded?
Yes, I think there's a little bit of nuance there in that, as I said earlier, that the projects that don't get picked that month continue to be under consideration. So it'd be kind of weird to publicize them and then later give them money. So yeah, I think there's something there, Graham, in terms of boosting the signal for others, and that's something we want to continue to develop and explore. I will also say that, you know, giving the time to boost the signal in terms of creating a video and social media and all that is a not insignificant donation from our team members. And so as of right now, we feel like our bandwidth is really one video and one big project to highlight each month. But if other folks want to join the fold and think about how to help us with all that storytelling, we are always open to new members. And in fact, we've added several every month.
Awesome. Councilwoman Gilbert asks, did you think about using the construction project for lower income folks who need repairs on their home who cannot afford it? We used to have that in Carroll County with Habitat or Christmas in April, one who no longer works and the other who is limited in repairs.
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of nuances there to explore. The first is that the beauty of the way that this group works right now as a pure pass-through organization with small monies is that anyone can apply. Nonprofit, small business, individual, church group, school group, whatever the case may be, they can go ahead and apply. So the easiest answer is yes. Folks that want that kind of help could go ahead and apply at any point through our website, heywestminster.com. The other part that I want to highlight there is that we are not intending to take the place of Habitat for Humanity or any of these other kind of HSP or any of those other groups. And so we are not a charity that is intended just to help people in a time of crisis. And I say that as someone who believes in helping people in a time of crisis. We're really looking for folks that want to do new things that don't just benefit themselves, but benefit the entire community. So that's kind of the vision there. So while we certainly wouldn't rule out helping someone who just needed help on their house, they might get beaten out by somebody else who's like, I'm gonna spearhead a network to help people like this, or whatever the case may be. So in other words, it's not like a one-off charity as much as it's intended to catalyze broader movements and broader actions.
Awesome. Mr. Willett, make sure you look at Anne's message wanting your brother's contact information. Graham ties back to his earlier question and says, maybe to publicize all projects, awarded or not, those applications are made public on your website.
I think that's something that our team can explore and talk about. We would just need to make that really transparent in the application process with everyone, because they may or may not want that. So that's a good idea. And I certainly think that there is very much a good kernel to grab onto there, in that we, of the 14 projects that were proposed to us last month, I'd say at least 8, possibly 10 of them were freaking awesome. And so we are not being hampered by projects, the number of projects. We're being hampered just by our bandwidth right now. And that's a kind of a fun problem to have. And what's really cool again is that so many of these opportunities are not just one-off charity projects. They're people that want to do cool things here in town. I will say, and I alluded to this earlier, that we have a lot of folks still circling us, and an update since even last night when I threw these slides together. We actually, I'm not going to disclose all the details just yet, because we're hoping to make another front page story out of this. But we have an individual here in town who just pledged $20,000 for the coming year. And we are going to do every 3 months. Our vision is every 3 months, we're going to give away a $5,000 bigger prize to a nonprofit here in town. And so everyone who is in the hopper currently is going to be in consideration for that next big prize. So stay tuned. We'll hopefully have that out next month. But again, we're going to, we have some significant money and resources that are still looking to partner with us. A lot of people are really excited by this initiative.
So Josh, you mentioned your front page ad, which was lovely. And of course, because I know you, I know about Hey Westminster, but how are the average people learning about Hey Westminster?
Yeah. Jeremy, are you still there? I was going to have Mr. Willett here chime in, who's kind of managing a lot of our social at the moment.
Yeah, man. I'm just driving, so I'm on the phone now. But yeah, we're leveraging social media, email, newsletter, and then we're really big into the storytelling piece. So like that one once a month video. And we're really trying to give that as a resource to the grant recipient so that they can use that to tell their own story. And probably our favorite thing that we've seen so far is like with Katie Kirby, for instance, after she received the grant money, what came alongside of that was like all of these connections and the video piece. And because people saw the video, then they started reaching out directly to Katie and saying, how do we donate? How do we contribute? How do we volunteer? And I think that's the heart of what we're trying to do here. They didn't come through us. We don't know of all the donations that Katie received from it, and we don't need to. But our job was just to like amplify something that was already being done in the community really well, support it, and stand there as a resource as she continues to grow, and be there as a resource that she can come back to and ask questions and ask for connections.
Yeah, and I think her video has been shared, what, almost 2,000 times on Facebook, Jeremy, something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it spread pretty quickly, you know, like especially for like a local organization, a local project. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. I will mention a personal dream that I have is I want to see some art projects submitted to this, whether that's a mural or, I don't know, maybe a one MC band performance, maybe. You know, whatever the case may be, we would love to sponsor some more art projects. And so feel free to get those in, and tech. And, you know, again, I want to be really clear. I cannot emphasize this point enough. You do not need to be a nonprofit to apply for this grant. You can be an individual, you can be a small business, you can be anyone. I can also give you a preview that our next winner for March was a special remembrance garden hosted by the Gateway School. And we're really excited to tell that story, and we're giving away that check and filming that video next week.
There's no other questions in the chat. And so something just, you know, came to me as a result of what you just said. What's an accountability factor, right? So as an individual, I might apply and say, I'm going to do this. You give me money. Where's the accountability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we addressed some of this in our FAQ on our website, and feel free to take a look at it. But basically, there is none on a logistical level. And that's, again, going back to the sort of nimbleness of who we are, and that we are just a pass-through for this $1,000 check. There is accountability in so much that, you know, we're putting you on blast, and then we're all going to be watching you on social media and other ways like that. And so it really is, you know, when we talk about it being a Kickstarter, I think that's a pretty good analogy, in that, you know, you can give money to a Kickstarter and they may or may not succeed. And, you know, by the same token, AO Boutique may close, Katie Kirby may go out of business, you know, whatever the case may be. And so we're not making, you know, an equitable, we're not making an investment in return for equity, or, you know, hoping to get money back or anything like that. This is purely us coming alongside people and ideas that we think are worth supporting, that we think are awesome, and saying, hey, let's do this.
There's a small conversation happening in the chat that I just want to highlight. It was asked, how do you work the taxes? And Jennifer chimed in and said, there's no tax impact since we are not a charity. It's out of pocket from the trustees. We are chipping in because we want to amplify good in the community. And then Ann says, thank you, just curious with the larger amount and the receipt of the 5K.
Yeah,
Graham?
that's a great question. Can I, sorry, just respond to that real quick?
Please. Yeah.
Again, more formal announcement coming, but the 20K is going to be run through someone else's foundation. And so we are just going to be a decision-making process for that larger foundation. So that will be a charitable kind of apparatus where it will only be able to be dispersed to someone who has 501c3 status for that special 5K every 3 months award. But for the regular 1K a month that Hey Westminster does, we're just not doing it as if we can give it to anyone. None of us are worrying at this point about, you know, the $100 a month being a charitable write-off. This is just us all chipping in to make this community what we want it to be.
Great. Graham is asking, are you limited to the city of Westminster or Greater Westminster?
Great question. We are kind of, our vision again is, you know, I just keep saying the same thing here, but, you know, making our community all that we want it to be. So we kind of are looking for projects that are based here in Westminster at the very least. So for example, we have a nonprofit, or we have a group that we're excited to work with that is doing global education, and they're impacting the whole world. And we're looking on, you know, their application very favorably, but we've also looked, and thankfully they've addressed this, that they're also impacting our students right here in Westminster. So we love that it's both, you know, a global focus and a community focus. But, you know, if they were just coming to us and saying, hey, we want to do work, you know, overseas or whatever, that may not play quite as well with our group right now, because again, we're really looking for some local impact.
Jennifer, thank you for reminding me of Graham's earlier question. The chat moves a little bit quickly and I missed it. He asked earlier, is there a limit on how many members of the committee that you can have? And how do you resolve issues with some members not contributing each month?
Cool. So currently, we're averaging participation right around 10 people. And that's out of like 15 that have agreed to be trustees or members of the group. So far, that's been sustainable, and long-term, we'll have to keep looking at it. I could see a world where, you know, 30 to 40 people want to be trustees and chip in $100 a month. And if that ends up being the case, we'll probably bifurcate. And I could see a world where we have a Hey Westminster group that focuses on nonprofits and a Hey Westminster group that focuses on for-profit endeavors. There's a lot of different ways we could slice and dice it, but we're kind of taking it one step at a time. And so, yes, there's some theoretical visioning about that, but it's not a bridge we've had to cross yet. And so I will put anyone to work that comes our way. So feel free to express your interest, and whether it's a one-time donation or whether it's an ongoing full participation in the group, we welcome it. And then to the second part of that question about people who can't give that month, so far everybody in the group is giving something. They may be giving an in-kind donation, they may be giving less than $100, they may be giving a little bit more than $100, but we're just being really transparent with everybody about where we are at each month. And so you know, this week, for example, I put out a call on our Slack channel, and I said, hey, everyone, we have $800 raised so far. We need that last 200. And then, you know, 2 trustees who hadn't given yet that month chipped in. So far, it's working out.
Great. Well, before I close up, we will ask you, Josh, what can the 1MC community do to help Hey Westminster?
Yeah, great question. Well, I already said I want to see some more art projects, and I would love to see some more tech projects come our way. I think one of the things that I really want to see too is that we're not just awarding this to people who are already doing cool things. I want to help stimulate new stuff. And so we really welcome ideas that haven't been tested, that haven't been tried yet. You know, again, whether it's a new event downtown, painting a new mural, whatever the case may be, we want to stimulate new things. So please just spread the word, encourage your friends, your family, your frenemies to go ahead and apply. And then if you have an idea for folks that we should connect with, if you have an idea for how we can scale up our impact, again, whether that's through our storytelling or whether it's through our finances or whatever the case may be, we welcome those conversations. Just keeping in mind, again, that our vision is to be able to impact anyone, anywhere doing something awesome here in Westminster. So nonprofit, for-profit, individual.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh, and those from Hey Westminster who joined him in his presentation today. It was lovely to learn more about what you guys are doing. And of course, thanks again to Graham for your autonomous corridor presentation. 2 great presentations this morning. Nice to see how we're making this Westminster community just a little bit better every day. A reminder about our sponsors, our community sponsors being Magic and also Furnace Hills Coffee. And I believe Graham threw that Furnace Hills Coffee code in there if you are needing a refill. And next week we have 2 local companies. We have Drum Tea, they make drum mutes, and we have Revert Strap. For those of you who might have been at the Biz Challenge and seen Retro Strap, a retractable strap for luggage. This looks like a rebrand of Retro Strap. So we'll have Revert Strap and Drum Tee next week. So we will see everyone same 1MC channel, same 1MC time. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.